Grand Touring Motorsports started as a social group of car enthusiasts, but we've expanded into all sorts of motorsports disciplines, and we want to share our stories with you. Years of racing, wrenching, and motorsports experience brings together a top-notch collection of knowledge and information through our podcast, Break Fix.
Hey everybody, Crew Chief Eric here. And today we're going to cover my retro test drive of a Renault R5 Turbo 2. They say never meet, or in this case, drive your heroes. But when someone approaches you and says, I need you to run an errand for me and please take my car, then hands you an odd-looking set of keys which unlocks a gateway to the past, it's really hard to say no. And this past weekend, GTM's new friend, Alan of the Classic Car Club of America, was more than generous to let me borrow his pristine Renault R5 Turbo 2 for a few hours. An American in Paris. When someone brings up the Renault 5 in conversation, it stirs up a lot of different thoughts and emotions. And for some, they probably have no idea what the significance of this vehicle is. And first impressions are lasting ones. So I won't fault anyone if they feel like it's a bit of an ugly duckling. Growing up during the height of the Killer Bee era, mention of the R5 immediately conjures images like those of the rally cars. Even though the R5 was an FIA Group 3 4 entrant, it ran alongside the famed Killer Bee cars, like the Audi Quattro, the Peugeot 205 T16, the Lancia Delta, and the Ford RS200. And I have no shame in admitting there was a Model R5 parked next to my other die-cast rally heroes in my bedroom. After watching the 1983 James Bond film Never Say Never Again, starring Sean Connery, it locked the R5 in a special place in my heart. And like many others, it is an automotive icon. The gorgeous Fatima Blush, played by Barbara Carrera, introduced the homologated rally car to the world by driving through narrow European streets while being chased by James Bond on a BMW motorcycle, as seen in the clip in our original article. Thinking back, I'm not sure who I had a bigger crush on, the Renault or Barbara Carrera. Let's sigh. For folks slightly older than me, they can probably remember this laughable little gem, the base model Renault 5, sold stateside as the Le Car. Sales of the Le Car were dismal at best, and by now most have biodegraded. However, a sum total of 4,987, 1,820 of which are Turbo 1s and 3,167 are Turbo 2s, the R5 Turbos were manufactured during a 6-year production run from 1980 to 86. The Turbo 1 was the closest to rally spec, using Bertone, Alpine, and specialty alloy parts directly from the Renault Sport parts bin, whereas the Turbo 2 was more of an affordable version using much more off-the-shelf Renault parts. Ooh, dead ass. It's undeniably wide and one of the R5's most distinct features. Approaching the R5 from behind makes you feel like you're behind other wide-body cars of the era, like the Porsche 930 or the Ferrari Testarossa. But the front end is significantly narrower than the rear, giving the R5 a noticeably wedged footprint. To make room after changing the configuration of the base Renault 5 from front-wheel drive to mid-engine rear-wheel drive, the engineers at Renault had to make significant modifications to the rear half of the car, specifically for cooling and ventilation. Up front in the, quote, frunk is a large tubular reinforcement beam that was installed in place of the engine in order to keep the chassis from twisting. At 144 inches long, the R5 is quite small. And for the sake of comparison, a first-generation Mazda Miata is 155 inches long, and a fourth-generation VW GTI is 163. Both of these vehicles, by today's standards, are considered compact, but the R5 is nearly 2 feet shorter than the VW. Whoa! It's what's on the inside that counts. A stock R5 Turbo 2 is powered by a turbocharged 1.4-liter Renault Cléon Font 4-cylinder, making 158 brake horsepower, mated to a 5-speed gearbox with a top speed somewhere shy of 130 miles an hour. Allen's Turbo 2 has been upgraded to a Stage 2 package, which bumps the horsepower up to a peppy 180, making it feel like a much larger engine. As mentioned previously, if you compared this car to the sportier and racing-inspired Bertone and Alpine interior of the Turbo 1, the Turbo 2 is much more plush and civilized. Unfortunately, moving to the off-the-shelf Renault parts means a cheaper feel and poorer fit and finish, even for a limited production hand-built car. The seats are probably the best and worst feature of the R5. They are bulky and almost too large for the cabin and provide an awkward seating position. Imagine driving while sitting at your kitchen table. But they do provide plenty of absorption for the R5's rough coilover ride. In typical early 80s Euro fashion, the interior is every shade of earth tone possible and comprised of chunky plastic components. The steering is left of driver center and the clutch pedal is spaced very far from the brake, whereas the gauges are easily visible and the shifter is in a great location. The R5 is full of quirks, which add to its charm. One of my favorites being the horn button, which is not in the center of the steering wheel, but found on the end of the indicator stalk. It makes one of the happiest sounds when people pulled up next to me on the road, waving and giving thumbs up. I would respond with a cheery beep beep and watch their faces explode with grins and laughter. The R5 has a raspy exhaust note, but having the engine directly behind you encased in a carpet-covered plywood box gives you a no-filter symphony from the engine. Unfortunately, because there is no separation between the driver and the engine, like you would find in a Lotus Elise or a Porsche Cayman, there is no lack of heat in the cabin. Driving with the windows cracked or opening the center air vent, which only lets in outside air, is mandatory. Diagnosing problems with the R5, especially sounds or smells, is a breeze. If I were to spend more time in the R5, I would probably install a carbon monoxide detector just to be safe. But it has great personality. Driving the R5 is interesting. I got to spend time with it in a mix of situations: twisty back roads, highway, and even in weekend traffic. On the highway, it's like any other car at 65 miles an hour. A little bumpy because of the coilovers and not too noisy. The motor hums at mid-range RPM and there are small rattles here and there. Visibility is good, and after a while you can begin to get accustomed to the odd seating position. I did mistake the hood release as a dead pedal until I realized the floor pan didn't have one. This meant resting your foot flat on the floor, which was okay, because my knee became a resting place for my wrist since the steering wheel is not only off-center, but slightly leans towards the dashboard on the left side. On a twisty road or off-ramp, the nose of the R5 tends to get light and gives you the impression of massive body roll, but once you've gotten used to it, you can really point and squirt the car wherever you like. At first, the brakes were mushy, but I started to realize that Alan had taken this car to an HPDE a few seasons ago, and it was equipped with race pads and Toyo R888R tires, which take time to warm up. Usually, manual steering cars turn slowly unless at speed and feel heavy and truck-like. But the R5 is so light and generates lift quickly, it gives the impression that it has power assist, which makes attacking corners fun. By today's standards, where your mom's Camry comes with close to 300 horsepower, depending on the package, it's hard to say that the R5 is fast. If you take the R5 back to 1985 comparables, the punch that the 1397cc can deliver in this tiny package is absolutely impressive. The turbo lag is period appropriate, and when the R5 is on boost, it's an absolute riot. The transmission in the R5 is fabulous. The gating between first, second, third, and fourth is perfect, tight, with no searching. The car responds well to quick shifting and heel toe, and it makes sense that fifth gear is a bit of a reach as it would be seldom used in a race. Reverse, on the other hand, equally as far from the H as fifth, is in an odd spot, being right next to second gear with no lockout. This makes a Bay City roller, or second gear rolling takeoff, or an aggressive third to second downshift challenging. But once you get used to the spacing, it does become very natural. Verdict. Is the R5 a good car? Heck no, it's terrible. It's rare, it's difficult to get parts for and maintain, it's cramped, it's hot, it's quirky, it's cobbled together, it's laggy, it has awkward handling, and above all, it's very French. But that doesn't mean I didn't love it. Driving the R5 was an absolute hoot, and I appreciated every moment behind the wheel. Storming down a B road with trees rushing by in a car like this gives you an overwhelming sense of euphoria and freedom. Seeing so many positive reactions from outsiders adds to that sense of glee, and it was an absolute concrete reminder of why cars are awesome. Like all good things, my rendezvous with Genevieve, I felt it appropriate to name the R5 after our date, had come to an end. A special thank you again to Alan for letting me spend time with a true icon, one of my heroes, and to get to know it better. This was definitely an experience I will not forget. From all of us at the GTM Writers Desk, we hope that you look forward to more reviews on classic cars coming in the next few months. And if you want to have your car featured or reviewed as part of a retro test drive, be sure to reach out to us at crewchief@gtmotorsports.org.
We hope you enjoyed another awesome episode of Break Fix Podcast, brought to you by Grand Touring Motorsports. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or get involved, be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Grand Touring Motorsports. And if you'd like to learn more about the content of this episode, be sure to check out the follow-on article at gtmotorsports.org. We remain a commercial-free and no annual fees organization through our sponsors, but also through the generous support of our fans, families, and friends through Patreon. For as little as $2.50 a month, you can get access to more behind-the-scenes action, additional pit stop minisodes, and other VIP goodies, as well as keeping our team of creators fed on their strict diet of Fig Newtons, gummy bears, and Monster. So consider signing up for Patreon today at www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports. And remember, without you, none of this would be possible.